Hi book lovers, welcome back to my channel. I have been really excited to do this video ever since I got this certain arc. So earlier this year, a movie adaptation of this Polish mafia romance came out. It was originally in Polish, Italian, and a little bit of English, but the English subbed version of the movie didn't release until like a couple months later, released on Netflix in the US, and it kind of blew up. This movie was kind of big on Netflix, and yes, I watched the movie pretty much the day that it came out on Netflix. But if you didn't know, this movie is based off of a book written by a Polish author. That book is 365 Days by Blanka Lipinska. Hopefully I'm saying her name right. And the book unfortunately did not have an English translation, but the book is finally being published in English in the US. Atria is publishing this in February 2021. Last week I got an email from Atria with a link to the arc. Honestly, I didn't even know or hear about Atria getting the rights to publish this book in English, but as soon as I got the email, I opened it and downloaded the early copy of the book. I was very curious to see how the book would compare to the movie, so I immediately dove in, and it was probably one of the most painful reading experiences that I've ever had. The book unfortunately was just really bad. I actually really wanted to like it. I mean, the movie, it wasn't the worst thing. If anything, it was just very entertaining. So I went into this book, 365 Days, wanting to like it, but the writing was god-awful. Besides the book needing a translator, it absolutely needed an editor as well, and I'm not sure what Atria was thinking. I'm not sure if they just straight up translated word for word from Polish to English. Maybe something gets lost in translation, but the writing is just very poor. Felt like I was reading something written on Wattpad with like no editing whatsoever. I am going to be going into the book a little bit more. There will be some slight spoilers. I'll just mention when I'm going to be talking about these spoilers. So I started reading this one last week when I put it on my currently reading shelf on Goodreads. Someone commented saying that they were Polish and told me not to do this to myself. They told me that they're from the same country as the author and to not read this book. I've also gotten a couple other messages like from people on Instagram telling me how bad this book was. So even though I did want to like this one, I did know going into it it wouldn't quite be the greatest reading experience of my life. But if I had to say one word that would describe my experience actually reading 365 Days, it would be painful. This book is a mafia romance. It's not too dark or anything like that, but it does have kidnapping and Stockholm syndrome, so very much within the mafia realm of romance. We have our main characters Laura and Massimo. Laura is our Polish heroine who goes on vacation to Italy, and that's where she meets our mafia don hero Massimo. So she's Polish, he's Italian, but they both understand and fluently speak English, and that's how they communicate. The movie actually does a lot better about setting up this story. Massimo and his mafia leader father, they both get attacked. His father dies, Massimo is on the brink of death, and he sees out of nowhere this mysterious woman. It's an apparition of this random woman. He doesn't know who she is, but after he recovers and takes over his father's mafia position, he goes to search for this mysterious woman that he dreamt about. So the movie actually opens up with this whole scene of Massimo and his father being shot, the heroine and her face showing up to Massimo while he's dying, whereas in the book the prologue is told in Massimo's point of view. That prologue is the only part of the book that's told in his point of view, but the prologue starts way after this attack on Massimo and his father. There's like one or two lines that mention what happened to them, but there's barely any setup to this. We're just told that Massimo dreamt up this mystery woman that he's in love with, and then all of a sudden he sees her at the airport while he's in his car, and as soon as he sees her, he decides to kidnap her and take her for himself. There's not even a possible part of his brain thinking, maybe I could woo this woman, I could court this woman, make her my girlfriend, get her to naturally fall in love with me. There's none of that. He's just, I guess, the quintessential mafia guy who kidnaps people because he wants to. So the book starts off with our hero stating that he's gonna kidnap our heroine, and that's that. And of course, during this prologue, in his point of view, he gets that blowjob from the flight attendant that we see in the movie. I'm pretty sure this happens after he sees Laura at the airport. He sees her face and knows that this woman, this dream woman of his, is actually real. He finally sees the apparent love of his life and gets his flight attendant to blow him. So he's a great guy. He apparently loves to imagine the heroine's face while he's sleeping with other women. Now we have the rest of the book told in the heroine's point of view. Her boyfriend takes her to Italy along with their couple friend. Martin is not a great boyfriend. He's not attentive at all. She runs into Massimo during their night out, celebrating her birthday during her Italian vacation. This mysterious guy keeps showing up where Laura is, and she kind of starts to get a little bit suspicious about him, but it's after this failed night out trying to celebrate that Laura gets kidnapped by Massimo. She wakes up, no idea where she is. She's not allowed to leave Massimo's house. She has no idea who he is, but then he tells her everything about him, how he's in the Italian Mafia, how he has seen her in his dreams, and that's why she's there. And all of this is told to us in the most boring way possible. It's just a straightforward conversation between these two, straightforward dialogue, and it was just so boring to read. It's very all over the place as well. Laura is of course panicking and angry. She tries to leave, she tries to fight him physically, and then she really quickly loses all of that steam and doesn't try very hard at all to escape. One really annoying thing though was that she constantly kept calling Massimo the man in black, just because the first night that she met him he was dressed all in black. But I guess since Massimo is just too boring of a name, the author kept interchanging Massimo and Man in Black, and this is where the Stockholm Syndrome comes into play, though honestly there's nothing that Massimo really does to make Laura fall in love with him besides him not physically hurting her. He does blackmail her over her family, but he doesn't lay a hand on her that she doesn't want. Oh, but he does buy her things. The way into Laura's heart is through money and clothes and jewelry. Massimo is apparently filthy rich. We're never really told how he has so much money or what he does to get all that money. We're just told that he owns some companies, and that's how he's where he is now, owning this giant mansion, a yacht, a private jet, and the ability to buy Laura lots and lots of brand name clothes. There's a shopping montage in the movie that is also in the book. Massimo takes Laura to go buy some clothes, and she buys nothing but expensive brand name things, and she is so happy and in love with all of that stuff. I don't know how many times the name dropping happened for all these expensive brands, but it happened constantly. There's literally a scene where Laura and Massimo go have dinner with this fellow mafia guy and his wife, and the two women are just fawning over Laura's new Givenchy boots. So it is very obvious that Laura's love language is receiving gifts. That is honestly the main reason that I can see why Laura ever falls in love with Massimo. And like I said before, the writing is just not good. The scenes jump all over the place. Laura's emotions are like a roller coaster. One moment she is angry and spitting fire at Massimo, and the next she's being all sexy and sultry towards him. She doesn't want to want him, but she does, mainly because he's gorgeous. The sex scenes, I can't say were all that great. I don't really remember them much. It didn't really make that much of an impression on me, besides how Laura pretty much gets off on being or acting like a whore. So she really enjoys when Massimo degrades her, which, I mean, fine, that's her kink. But if you're not a fan of reading about other women drama in your romances, there is quite a bit of that in this book. That scene in the movie with Massimo getting blown by a stripper right in front of Laura, that also happens in this book. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about some of the differences between the movie and the book, but first I wanted to do this little game segment of guess where that quote is from. I have 3 quotes and I want you guys to guess where that quote is from, and I'm gonna give you some options of where this quote could possibly be from. The first quote is, "His beautiful, straight, and thick prick stood erect like a candle stuck in the birthday cake I had back at the hotel." Is it from A, 365 Days, B, 50 Shades of Grey, or C, a Wattpad fanfic? If you guessed A, 365 days, you are correct. This is basically the kind of writing that you can expect in this book. The second quote is, "I opened my eyes wide. My heart was thundering fast and hard, like applause after a Beyonce concert." Same choices here again. A, 365 days, B, 50 Shades of Grey, or C, a Wattpad fanfic. If you guessed A, 365 days, you are correct again. Honestly, I have to laugh. These metaphors are just so bad. They're almost good. And then the last quote is, "Are you lost, baby girl?" Is it A, 365 days the book, B, 365 days the movie, or C, both? This one is a little bit trickier, but if you answered C, both the movie and the book, you are incorrect. The "Are you lost, baby girl" line is only in the movie. It never shows up in the book. Although Massimo does call Laura baby girl, that's his endearment for her, but he never asks her that iconic line that happens in the movie.
Are you lost, baby girl? Are you lost, baby girl?
Which honestly was probably my biggest disappointment about this book. I was so looking forward to the "Are you lost, baby girl" line. So instead of saying that line in the book when they come across each other for the first time during Laura's birthday party, he says, "You seem to be lost. I can help you if you tell me what you're looking for." That's all he says, and that is such a travesty. So going back into the book versus the movie, the main differences between these two were Martin, Laura's ex. He played a bigger role in the book than he did in the movie, and also the ending is completely different. Martin in the movie shows up around twice, in the beginning with Laura for her birthday, and then he shows up towards the end wanting to talk to her again. In the book, he shows up a lot more. Towards the end, he comes back begging Laura to take him back. It gets Massimo jealous and furious, and he threatens Laura to kill Martin. And the other major difference between the book and the movie is the ending. I won't say exactly what happens in either, so I won't spoil it, but I will allude to what happens. So if you watch the movie, you know about the mysterious accident that does not happen in the book. The book instead ends on this argument with Laura confessing something to Massimo that is supposed to wreck his world. Unfortunately, for a twisty, dramatic ending, it just didn't work at all. Mainly because we've known about the secret of Laura's for like 10-15% of the book already. So it's not much of a twist for the reader, it's more of a twist for the hero. And it was dragged out for so long that by the time she tells her secret, it's just so lame and boring. I guess you could consider the book ending on a cliffhanger, but it's just so poorly done because the book ends like you would read how a chapter ends. It just feels like the book stopped in the middle of a story in a totally unsatisfying way. So the book was just not good. I would not recommend reading this one, even if you love the movie. Writing is bad. The story felt way too long and dragged out. I didn't really see or understand the romance at all, which is pretty disappointing because the premise is kind of interesting. I would definitely read it if someone else wrote it. If some of my favorite Mafia romance authors like Mia Knight or J.M. Darhauer, Pepper Winters wrote this kind of story, I would definitely love it a lot more. The story is one of the few times where the movie did it better. So if you had to go with one, you should just watch the 365 Days movie on Netflix. Like I mentioned earlier, it did pretty well. It was #1 on Netflix for 10 days, which the book is very kind enough to tell us about. It says the ranking at the beginning of the book. So the movie is better, mainly because, like 90% because of the eye candy. They did a great job casting Massimo and Laura, especially Massimo. Michele Morrone 100% made watching the movie worth it. I do believe they're continuing on making more movies. There's 2 more books. I think it's a trilogy. The movie does end on a cliffhanger, a much more satisfying cliffhanger than the book does. But that is how the book went for me, which was not great. I have to give this one 1 star. There was honestly not much I enjoyed about this one. I ended up skimming a bit of it just because it was getting so slow and dragged out, so I would not recommend. But if you do want some better mafia romances, I do have a video wrecking some of my favorites. I'll link it down below. That video was actually inspired by the 365 Days movie release on Netflix. So I do recommend some other mafia romances, some better mafia romances that are similar in plot to the story. If you do end up reading the English release of this book, let me know. It's still a while away. It won't be out till February, but I am so curious to see what everyone's reactions are. If you have watched the movie though, let me know your thoughts. I hope you enjoy this video and I'll see you all next time. Bye!